All right, welcome back to our KOTOR 2 companion journeys. Hope everyone enjoyed that first episode. We talked about the pilots of the Ebon Hawk, Atten and T3. They're the ones flying the ship, but a ship is nothing without the ship captain. That is Meetra Surik here in our story of Knights of the Old Republic 2. And we're picking up two companions today that are pretty influential on who she was and who she is going to be. Cassie, I'm pretty excited to talk about these ones. I think that these might be a couple of our more interesting characters in the story.
Yeah, Bao-Dur and Visas Marr are some of the most beloved characters, I would say, in the KOTOR series. So it's going to be really fun to kind of talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are making our way down to Telos to pick up our first companion, and that is Bao-Dur. So who is Bao-Dur? Is Zabrak from Iridonia, modeled, pretty much from Darth Maul. That's where the kind of species comes from and has that same kind of look, but not the no red and black on the tattoo lines here.
Yeah, I think if Bao-Dur goes to the dark side, he kind of has like a little bit of a tattoo slider, you know?
Oh.
It kind of gets more filled out if he goes more dark, but he kind of just has the lines, not really like he's the same species, I believe, as Darth Maul, but no tattoos, really.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, no tattoos, just has kind of those the horns around the head. Has a lot of really great background with our character Meetra Surik. So as I mentioned, he's a Zabrak. He is from Iridonia, and after the war began and the Mandalorians started destroying and conquering places, they destroyed a lot of the colonies in Iridonia. So Bao-Dur joined up with the Republic to start fighting back to get some revenge on the Mandalorians that had, displaced so many people. And that's how he came to serve under Meetra Surik in the first place.
Yeah, and I believe he was the only Iridonian Zabrak like on his squad, but he was a very smart fighter, and he would eventually kind of create and invent the design for the mass shadow generator.
Yeah, that's right. Was tasked with designing that, kind of an engineer, kind of a builder type of a figure, and created this big super weapon that, when was activated, cost a lot of people their lives, almost destroyed the whole galaxy, and for his part in it, lost his arm in that. So when we meet Bao-Dur, he's got that little glowing kind of hinge and pretty special arm that we're going to use kind of as we go through the game to open doors and things. Could probably be a little bit more useful, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he has the coolest robotic hand in all of Star Wars, which is not something I say lightly, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of characters lose like their limbs like left and right. But his glows, like, and part of me would like to see it utilized like against a lightsaber, just
Mm-hmm.
to see it happen. Um, and there is kind of a funny line that Meetra Surik asks, "How'd you lose your arm anyway?" And then he responds, "I got tired of it, kept dropping my hydro spanner, figured I'd get a new one." And then she says, "Yeah, I'll bet that was fun."
That is a pretty good line. Bao-Dur has a lot of really fun lines, kind of revolving around his little droid sidekick kind of thing. Where he talks about he's the only one that he wants to have one because he thinks that that's more fun to be the only one. Of course, he's always trying to help build the lightsaber and just do a lot of building and things like that. And that is what Bao-Dur really wanted to get back to, right? So after the Jedi Civil War, his homeworld of Iridonia was destroyed by Malik. So what are you going to do if you're a Zabrak inventor engineer that has done some really terrible things here in the name of the war effort and for Meetra Surik? We're going to go to start helping out with the restoration project that's going on Telos 4, and that is where we meet Bao-Dur, a friend from our past.
Yeah. And he always calls Meetra Surik General. It's kind of funny. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, Cassia, how would you describe Bao-Dur's, kind of journey through KOTOR 2? We talked a little bit about, his background, who he was, how he got to, Telos 4 when we pick him back up. But how would you describe his journey within the confines of the KOTOR 2 story?
um, I just know there's an Oppenheimer movie coming out by Christopher Nolan, and I know that
Mhm.
like we are really generating some major buzz for that movie, like, like by mentioning it. But Bao-Dur is kind of like the Oppenheimer that created the mass shadow generator, and it had disastrous effects for like basically everyone on Malachor 5, So
Mhm.
I think he he did join the Republic military kind of for the sake of revenge, but he developed a deeper conscience after what happened on Malachor. So he kind of like went into exile and went to Telos 4 to help with the rebuilding there. Um,
Mhm.
but for the most part, he's kind of like a mild-mannered um, person of just a few sayings and slightly funny. And he has a nice voice. I have to say, like, if there was an ASMR like with Bao-Dur, I'd be like, oh, yeah, this is good. And um, I mean, I mentioned this a lot, but like, I'm kind of like, why not? Like, why couldn't Bao-Dur have been a romantic option? Like, was that like an idea that was thrown around? Like,
Yeah.
I, I kind of just don't know why that didn't happen. Is it because he was a Zabrak and they're like, we don't want to have a human and a Zabrak together? And I'm like, because that's wrong, but
Mhm.
he just wasn't an option. And I was really sad about that.
Yeah, you certainly think that there could have been something there because, by all accounts, he has at least as much kind of history and, personal attachment to Meetra Surik as someone like Mikhail does, right? So, yeah, it would have been an interesting kind of in the aspect of a relationship if that's something that could have been explored within the game, as opposed to add in or in addition to, or to just make it kind of more open for exploring relationships kind of with all of the members there. But as far as his journey goes and KOTOR 2, I think by the time we pick him up, he's already kind of on his atonement story. But that's kind of put on hold as he goes off, with Meetra Surik to help her um on her travels. So I think that for him, his road is really about finding some peace and helping to restore Meetra Surik. What he's been trying to do is restore like the physical kind of infrastructure and planets and things that had been destroyed and razed and all those sorts of things, kind of at the behest of this mass shadow generator. But now he's doing his restoration on kind of a more personal level to bring Meetra Surik back up to kind of the level that she was. And I think that's partly why he always is referring to her as general and wants to help her get her lightsaber fixed, because he's a fixer of things. He wants to fix things. And I think he sees the opportunity to quote unquote fix Meetra Surik here in the story.
Yeah, I mean, they have like probably the most involved backstory together. They fought in the wars together. She literally was his general in the war. They really shared the mesh shadow generator together. Um, but Theodore kind of seems a little bit more put together and less codependent than maybe some of the other companions. Like he's actively like trying to make things better. Um, and uh, it kind of seems like he kind of like took the initiative to make that journey on his own. And um, we forgot to mention a really important thing about Bao-Dur. Do you know what it
Oh,
is?
I do not know.
Uh, it's that he has a remote that follows him.
Yeah, that's right. He does have a little remote that follows him, and actually is pretty important in the game. It has like a little gun, so it can shoot at people. But the remote ultimately is what reactivates the mass shadow generator at the end of the game. So it's definitely a good companion to Bao-Dur, and kind of plays a pivotal role in kind of the story of Meetra Surik and her atonement story there as well. Just something that he created is um, I don't know, able to interact with something else that he's created. So that's kind of an interesting kind of a side there to Bao-Dur as a character as well. Anything to add on about our little remote friend there?
Um, it kind of reminds me of Anakin making droids and kind of working on them when he was a kid because he made the remote when he was a child, and it's like that kind of takes some initiative and talent, and it's always nice because when you're fighting as Bao-Dur, like the remote is kind of just like a little bonus thing that hits enemies, and it's like thank you for doing that little remote. And I'm not sure if it has a name, but it's kind of funny because you can ask like, can you build me one? And Theodore says, I would, but then I wouldn't be the only one with a floating sphere following him around. And I kind of like that. So you kind of get that sly bit of humor and yeah, so I think it just kind of shows that he's always kind of tinkering, always building things, and is like takes initiative to do things.
Yeah, and I think his little remote droid, kind of like all the droids here on the Ebon Hawk, really doesn't get along that well with like GOTO. Is there kind of a similar design and functionality? So I just think that's kind of fun in the paradigm of the droids here on board. But um, so we're talking about Bao-Dur and his journey through KOTOR 2, but ultimately KOTOR 2 is Meetra Surik's journey. So what do you think is the role of Bao-Dur in in Meetra Surik's story? Cassia, do you think that he plays a vital part, or what sort of what piece of her journey do you think that he fulfills?
I think it's like someone from her past that has kind of seen her through like the war, like the good aspects, like and as far as like war can be good, like I think like the exile was going into war for the right reasons and it was trying to help people, but also like the very worst of it, the mass shadow generator. So
Mhm.
they have a deep understanding and backstory together that literally began with the Mandalorian Wars. So I think it's kind of like she has an associate who has seen her like through all of that, who's also on the journey with her. And I think it kind of reminds her of Malachor 5 all the time. But uh, in the canonical light sided story, Bao-Dur uh, is trying to actively help and do something about it. So I think it's just kind of like a good example for her to kind of work on stuff and make it better.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, kind of this, shared history that they both have that, is really coming full circle as we go back to Malachor. It would be interesting to have, been able to witness kind of their interactions, in the first place at Malachor when the mass shadow generator gets activated. I guess the story goes is she gave him a nod and he turned it on. And, then everything that happened. But I wonder had they had conversations about what they thought might happen, what could happen, what the ramifications of what were going to happen, or were they, totally just flying blind? I think that would have been really interesting. And then, we kind of get the closure to that, right? When, we're going back to reactivate the thing kind of at the close of the story. So I think that's really neat. And I think that the other kind of aspect of Meetra Surik's story that he's kind of fulfilling is I think that he's playing a big part in kind of reconnecting her to the Vorse. He's always saying, General, you're a Jedi, and you could use the Force, and you could build a lightsaber again. You still know how to do all that stuff. So I think in that sense, he's kind of serving as both an ally and as a like a giver in the story, right? In relationship to her lightsaber is kind of this first test that she needs to pass, this threshold to get over on her journey to reconnecting with the Force.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we see, kind of Bao-Dur's, story through KOTOR 2. Now, depending on kind of how you interpret the ending with Darth Treya, she kind of implies that, pretty much everyone on the Ebon Hawk was Force sensitive, and they all kind of go back to help rebuild the Jedi Order. But what do you think, Cassia? Is that logical? Is that really what Bao-Dur's getting up to after the events of KOTOR 2? Is he just going back to be a Jedi now, potentially, or what do you think he gets up to?
After KOTOR 2,
Yeah.
um, I mean, like, according to like the end of the game, that kind of wasn't fully realized, KOTOR 2. I think the plan was for him to die in the Battle of Telos 4. Um, and that's kind of why he's a remote in the end game. It's kind of like he is, kind of giving his remote uh, instructions via holocron or a hologram when he is dead,
Hmm.
But I kind of, I don't know, like it would be nice if he uh, kind of helped rebuild the Jedi Council because he's so good at rebuilding things, but Kryze didn't really have the ability to predict his fate, so it could have left room for his character uh, to reappear in a third installment in the series, which never happened. But it's kind of hard because it's like asking me like what do I prefer, and it's like we only have a few hypotheticals and like an
Hmm.
unfinished game. So I'm not like I don't know. Part of it is kind of tragic if he does die in Telos 4, the battle there. Because it's like he wants to fix things, and he did kind of fix things, but like maybe like he kind of had to like some old things like from the Mandalorian Wars had to pass on,
Hmm.
to make the galaxy better. So I don't know. It's tantalizing.
Yeah, it is tricky. Yeah, and I don't love, the idea of him dying as part of, his atonement story. If Meetra Surik is getting to live after it, it's almost like he's paying the ultimate price for her sin.
Obeying orders, yeah.
Almost in a way, right? So I don't love that. Um, I would be okay, I guess. Going back to help rebuild the the Jedi Order, the Jedi Temple, or things on Dantooine. I'm kind of okay with that. What I think would be an interesting, kind of story, um, journey progression, for Bao-Dur would be to go off with Mandalore, right? With Canderous to kind of mend fences there. Ultimately he got involved in the war in the first place because of the Mandalorians warring and destroying the colonies there on Iridonia. I think it might be interesting for them to come together and sort of build bridges and help sort of restore the galaxy that way. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah. Uh it'd be nice if he's able to keep on fixing things and yeah. I'm always tantalized by what could have been, a complete KOTOR trilogy. Uh but
Got a question here from Jake on our Discord. So if you want to hit us up on Discord, just look to the social medias. The link for it is in there. I can get you a link to it. But Jake's asking, how could Bao-Dur have been fully realized? Do you think we kind of addressed that? We talked a little bit about his story and what we would have liked to see. Is there anything else that you would have liked to have seen realized within, maybe just the confines of KOTOR 2 about his story?
um maybe like a more definitive ending. Sometimes there's so many characters in Knights of the Old Republic too, it is hard to give them all moments to shine. And like the plan was to have a KOTOR 3, but so I guess I'm kind of just it's like I'm an old man yelling at a cloud, like we're never gonna get KOTOR 3 and I just have to deal with that, but uh I kind of think like a conclusion and maybe making him a romance option would have been nice, but is there anything you think wasn't fully realized?
No, I think that's probably the big one for me is just the aspect of being kind of a romantic interest or maybe exploring that relationship a little bit more because it seems like that's pretty heavily done like in the first part of the game, which kind of makes sense in a way, right? Because he's one of the first companions that we're picking up, so you get a little bit more exploration there before the waters get diluted a little bit, so to speak, with other companions coming on. But I would have maybe liked to see or just have a little bit where they kind of pull one another aside and just kind of hash out what they're thinking about how things are going and what kind of the ultimate goal is, because it doesn't really feel like that ever gets brought up at all until you get to Malachor 5. And of course it's a video game, so you kind of know as the player what the ultimate objective is. But to maybe kind of explore how the characters felt about that objective along the way would have been nice. And with all the cut content, certainly that's something that probably was explored, but we never got to fully realize for sure. So yeah, I think that's kind of uh that as far as Bao-Dur's story go. Any last words on Bao-Dur before we flip the page over to our next companion, Cassia?
No, but if there's anything you believe that we missed, feel free to leave a comment, and we'll always be happy to cover it. So, uh, our next companion we're going to cover is Visas Marr, and what's cool about her name is like Visas is very similar to C, I think, in Spanish, and Mar, it's kind of like to obscure, so it's kind of like obscured vision. So
Mm.
I thought that was cool.
That's right, yeah, because Visas Marr has no vision at all, right? Because she's a Miralukan from Qatar and can't see, just literally sees through the Force, and that's why she, wears kind of that crimson kind of like hood that just comes down past her eyes. We talked about, back when we did our KOTOR fashion show episode about her look there. But who is Visas Marr? How does Visas get to where we first meet her, battling on board the Ebon Hawk?
Well, she lived on Qatar, which is a Mirror-Lucan world, and the Master Atris. She held a conclave at Qatar with the remaining Jedi from the first Jedi Purge, um, whilst purposefully leaking the event's whereabouts to the Sith Triumvirate. And that was in hopes to draw them out. But the plan like backfired, and Darth Nihilus consumed like all of the organic life on the planet, striking, I'm reading Wikipedia, a devastating blow to the Jedi Order. Nihilus left Visas Marr alive on Qatar, and I think she was the lone survivor. She's kind of like Aang in The Last Airbender, and she
Mm.
became his apprentice. And um, that was really good for her as a person, to become Darth Nihilus's apprentice. Just kidding. It was really bad. And I think that was covered in a comic. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's really cool because it's in black and white. Um, Let me see what it's called. It's fascinating.
Is it the Star Wars Tales comic?
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah. It's in black and white, and it really kind of feels more dark and gritty because it's in black and white, and it covers some pretty horrendous stuff. So
Yeah, it has more of that graphic novel feel, the way kind of the art style is there. But yeah, that's definitely a good one to go check out. And yeah, I think she's pretty important. And the moral of the story there basically is don't tell the Sith Triumvirate what your plans are, because they might just show up and kill everyone. And get Visas Marr to be Darth Nihilus's apprentice. But yeah, good news is she comes on board the Ebon Hawk to fight Meetra Surik. Meetra Surik, of course, is victorious in our story here, and Visas Marr is left there wondering, maybe I should go with you instead of Darth Nihilus. Maybe you are who I need to talk to. So, Cassia, Visas Marr, how would you describe her journey through the events of Knights of the Old Republic? Right, we found out how she became, the Visas Marr that we know, right? Darth Nihilus's apprentice, coming to fight us. But kind of from that point, when she steps on board the Ebon Hawk, what do you think her character journey is?
so she experienced something horrible, kind of like the genocide of her entire planet. And because she could only see through the force, like she saw it in a way like no one can really uh comprehend it, And I kind of think like she did become Nihilus's apprentice, but it was more through fear and like probably Stockholm syndrome, rather than like her belief in the dark side. So
Hmm.
when she confronts the exile on the Ebon Hawk, like, and she's spared, she kind of instantly, uh, I don't think she's used to like being shown mercy. So she kind of instantly like decides to like join you and wants to honor you. And um, I think at times, like, it kind of reminds me of Bastila in the first Knights of the Old Republic, where Bastila is kind of subservient to the Jedi Council on Dantooine, and then
Hmm.
she turns to the dark side and is subservient to Darth Malak, and it's like she's kind of like still subservient and not fully like individuating as like a force user. So I kind of see that as a little bit of a similar situation where it's like sometimes Visa seems very passive, you know, and like
Hmm.
is kind of like my life for yours, and it's like it's okay, you can um like individuate and that's okay. Like you don't need to be codependent on Meetra Surik, like I think that's one aspect of Visas Marr's characterization I would have liked to see. Like it's not just one thing to like go from the dark side to the light, but it's like I think like it would have been better for her to like realize she doesn't need a master. She can trust herself, not just like sacrifice herself for different force users.
Yeah, she doesn't have a ton of agency within the story, which is unfortunate because I think that she's a very fascinating character.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, she's only seeing the world through the Force, through Force energy. So when Darth Nihilus and crew show up and you know eats, quote unquote eats all of the life force off of her planet, it's literally just like her whole world is going dark, at this time, and left with one point of light, and that's Darth Nihilus. So you have to kind of, you're almost forced in a way to go with that. It's the only thing that you can still see in the whole of the galaxy. So I think that that's really interesting. But then as far as her kind of story goes through Knights of the Old Republic 2, I find kind of her as a character just very honorable, very stand up, uh you know I don't know, because she has all the reasons in the world to hate the Jedi and to hate the Sith, right? The Jedi were the ones that came and, flaunted around and got her whole planet destroyed, right? That's lots of reasons to hate the Jedi. She gets, captured and taken in by the Sith, has to do all these horrible things, see all these horrible things, so she has every reason in the world to hate the Sith, right? So who do you turn to? And I think kind of in Meetra Surik, she sees someone that has the ability maybe to kind of restore some sort of peace and balance to the universe. And I think that's ultimately why she goes with her, because, Visas Marr doesn't have a lot of opportunities left to see any light within the galaxy. So, it's kind of this almost last ditch effort kind of there. And I think that, Visas Marr is really kind of important in that sense, because, she's able to teach Meetra Surik, some force knowledge that might have been forgotten to, Visas Marr, or had forgotten to Meetra Surik, or, just kind of, the galaxy at large. And she plays an important role, I think, for, kind of in the duality of those two, right? Being able to confront your past and make piece of, these big terrible chain of events that have forged, kind of the lives up until that point. And I just ended on it a little bit there, Cassia, but what role do you think Visas Marr plays in Meetra Surik's heroine's journey here in the story? Is there a slice of that pie that she is filling, or what do you think?
After we are done discussing her, we're gonna be like, what are Bao-Dur and Visas Marr's, pie of choice? What are
Oh,
they? Yeah,
mm-hmm.
surprise. But um, yeah, it's funny because when you see the art for KOTOR 2, like the concept art, like I kind of thought like Visas Marr looked ruthless and like evil. But I think she was kind of just a victim of circumstance, and like within the canonical light-sided story, um, I think she's the one that most um or she's one of the companions that's most aligned with the dark side and is like a hopeful person. And I think maybe Visas Marr, um, she kind of gives the connection to Darth Nihilus that we the player wouldn't have otherwise, like to kind of know what's going on there in that part of the plot. But I think it kind of shows like uh Visas Marr had like everything horrible happen to her, but when she's shown mercy, she uh kind of totally turns her life around and becomes one of the most devoted to the light side, I would say. And she becomes a Jedi Sentinel. And I think that's good. Like I think it's like it shows the exile that people can change.
Hmm.
And I think maybe the way she sees through foresight kind of helps maybe the exiles see the force, kind of literally and metaphorically, like in a new light as well as they reconnect, you know?
Hmm.
And there's just so many fascinating things you can kind of like keep on looking at when you look at these characters and Visas Marr. But um that's how I kind of see her affecting her journey. But one aspect that is kind of dropped uh, with her character when uh, the exile is canonically female, that romance with Visas Marr isn't available. But I could honestly kind of see like if there were ever an adaptation of it and the exile were still female, like I could honestly kind of see like, like Visas Marr still being an option, maybe.
Hmm.
Or maybe that's just me, but it kind of seems like the Visas Marr romance was the more popular male romance. Because I think you can like romance the handmaiden Brianna and Visas Marr. And I think there are hints that like Atris had a crush, you know, on the male exile back in the day, and that ended, really well for both of them. Uh,
That's right.
but yeah, so I mean, I kind of miss that aspect from the male Jedi exile, like when that's dropped. But like I think like, you know, things are different than 2024 or wait, 2004. Things are different, in 2023. Like if they wanted to realize that, romance with, a female exile.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think in kind of looking at Visas Marr as a character here within our story, I think that Visas Marr really is kind of the closest thing to some sort of like force dyad or force bond kind of thing that you have with Meetra Surik, and kind of the way that their ideals and the way they're able to learn from one another and teach one another really line up. So yeah, I think that relationship option would be good to explore, whether it's a male exile or a female exile. I think that is a really kind of neat relationship to explore there. I think maybe instead of calling this the KOTOR 2 companion journey, maybe we should just say what horrible things happened to all the people on board the Ebon Hawk, because everyone
What did they
has
overcome?
has a has a tough go of it. Yeah, for sure. Because I think for Meetra Surik's story, what does Visas Marr do? What does she represent? Who is she to Meetra Surik? I think she's she's basically the physical embodiment of all of the pain and damage that the Jedi were able to cause. Their hubris destroyed a whole planet and cast the whole galaxy into the dark, which is horrible. So Visas Marr really is representing that value of forgiveness and being able to find inner peace despite all this terrible stuff that's going on around you. And she kind of latches on to Meetra Surik in that way, as this harbinger of light. And on the other side of Meetra Surik, you have Kreia, who's definitely not helping with any of that, right? Because her ultimate goal is to snuff the Force out of the galaxy. So it's almost like a little devil and a little angel on Meetra Surik's shoulder there. Whereas I kind of see Visas as like, kind of the mirror image of Kreia, trying to be hopeful and optimistic and preserve the light as opposed to snuffing it out. So yeah, I think that's kind of just really interesting, and I think that it would have been fun to maybe have explored that within the confines of a relationship. And you do see that in the game and in some of the cut content, because Kreia really is not a big fan of Visas Marr and having Visas, stay on board and go on that journey. And I think that is kind of a fascinating, kind of tug of war over, the soul of Meetra Surik, I guess.
Yeah, and guess what Thesis and Kreia have in common?
What is that? Beside cool hoods, they have cool hoods.
They're both blind, and they
Yeah,
have hoods, so they kind of are literally mirror images of like devil, angel, and I think that's cool. And um, like you said, like Visa Smart had like probably maybe the toughest go of it. I think out of the KOTOR 2 companions, like we can have like a trauma conga like contest maybe later at the end, like who had the worst hand dealt, but
right.
I kind of think it's Visas, honestly. But uh at the end of the game, like there's a lot of like different ways things could have turned out, but from what I gather, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. Like, uh, Visa Smart accompanies the Exile and Mandalore onto the Ravager, and they take down Nihilus, and so it's like she was, a victim of Nihilus and became uh his apprentice, but she joined a better cause and helped take him down. And uh, I think that empowers her. I believe we had a question from Jake, you know,
Hmm.
uh, that will maybe help us make our final points.
That's right. Yeah. So Jake's asking us again. This is through our Discord. Do we think that Visas was a little bit too exaggerated? What do you think? The character Visas Marr here in our story. Do you think that her story, her character, is exaggerated through KOTOR 2, Cassia?
Maybe she's a little too passive. Uh, and like I said, like it would have been nice to see her kind of individuate more because sometimes when you switch back to her character, she's literally like, my life for yours. And it's like, it's okay. You have value, Thesis. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I think like Nihilus did a lot of damage to her, but I don't think like a whole lot needs to be changed, but maybe like in the process of her overcoming Nihilus at the end, like maybe um maybe you just don't have like the Jedi exile like kind of give off the impression they're just kind of glowing in like the attention that Visas gives them, and it's like you are great too, Visas. You know, you have a lot of things to offer the galaxy. You know, and no one like no Jedi, no Sith, Darth Nihilus can't take that away from you. You know, like that's what I would have liked.
hmm Yeah, I would like to see that character given, like I said, a little bit more agency, to be able to, stand up for herself a little bit more. And yeah, like you said, I mean, she's, seen awful things. She was, underneath of Darth Nihilus, obviously doing awful things, and the treatment of her was likely awful as well. So, I think that the timidness, comes with warning, but or with, is very well warranted. But I would like to see her, through the course of the story, able to, reclaim some of her, individuality and spirituality and things like that. And I think maybe they tried to address it kind of there, with that final confrontation with Nihilus, but a lot of that happens off screen. I think she goes and meditates. So maybe just a little bit more, kind of with that to make it feel like she's really, kind of taking control back over her life and within, the realms of the story. She's not just, tagging along because this seems like something good to do. But yeah, I don't know. I think that she's a super interesting character, but just need to see more of her. And yeah, again, that's the problem when you have 1,000 characters you're trying to get time for in the game. But super fascinating and super interesting. And one of the things then that I think is interesting, we talked about it just a second ago with Bao-Dur, that basically all the companions were force sensitive or Jedi and potentially went back to rebuild the Jedi Enclave. But I don't know. I don't buy that for Visas Marr. But what do you think, Cassio? What do you think after the events here of KOTOR 2? What do you think Visas gets up to?
Um, I kind of assumed like she'd be like the biggest defender of like not necessarily like the system of the Jedi, but like kind of what the kind of the kind of Jedi that Meetra Surik showed her to be, you know, and like the rest of the companions, and not really to be like just a Jedi part of a system, but like part of the solution that like kind of helps people and the galaxy, like so like situations that happened to her wouldn't happen again. That's
Mhm.
what I kind of see, but what do you think happens?
Yeah, I think it's some kind of thing, right? Kind of like cheer it there in Rogue One is kind of a guardian of the wills sort of thing where you're really going and preaching and protecting the Force itself versus the fundamentals of the Jedi or the declarations of the Sith. You're really just trying to embody the Force and the teachings and the things that you can learn. And we don't know how many Lucan there are left scattered around the galaxy. Obviously, KOTOR is gone, but is she able to form some sort of sect of that to just worship the Force as kind of this all-encompassing power within the galaxy? But I don't see her going and joining up with the Jedi. I think all all of those ships have sailed, so to speak,
I guess
for
Atris
her.
kind of
So
nuked that option, maybe. That's
that's
something
right.
good to think about. Like, it's like, yeah, it kind of like uh, Atris doing that kind of did instigate like her life of trauma. So
Hmm.
I guess that's a good thing to think about. Like, maybe she just does her own thing. She's aligned with good, but like not necessarily a Jedi. Yeah, like I wish we could have gotten KOTOR 3 and seen what happened to her. Maybe she would have like maybe they were saving like Visas Marr like becoming more of her own hero, for KOTOR 3 and we just never got to see it.
Yeah,
So who knows?
yeah, for sure. We'll have to come up with our own KOTOR 3 full adaptation someday on the podcast, maybe. But yeah, I think that kind of is going to wrap it up for Visas Mar. Now we have to you brought it up, so we have to do this before we end this KOTOR 2 companion journey. What's Bao-Dur and Visa's favorite kind of pie? What do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to hold on Bao-Dur for a second because I'm kind of like, what? But for Visa Smar, like her clothing options kind of remind me of like a nice raspberry or razzleberry pie flavor. So
Mm,
that's
hmm.
what I would say. I hope she likes it, and I hope like if she didn't like it, she would feel comfortable enough to like be like, I don't like this pie. I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to choose another. Uh,
Yeah,
but
very good. Yeah, very good. I like that. I was thinking kind of along the same lines. I was thinking like a cherry pie or yeah, like a raspberry
yeah,
pie because it would match her outfit that way in case, spilled some, it'd be all right, no big deal. Be good to go.
yeah. And then with Bao-Dur, um, I kind of think coconut. Um,
Oh, okay.
even though his arm isn't like coconuts aren't really blue, but like the interior of his arm is kind of white, uh, and like it's kind of flaky, kind of looks like snow that they have on Telos 4, and uh, that's kind of what I think he would like is a coconut pie if they have
Okay.
coconut in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, for sure. I thought when you were talking about his arm, I thought you were going that he had like some sort of spatula attachment to get himself a piece of pie. But I do like that, and I do like playing on the Arctic flavors. So I'm going. Bao-Dur is a man with exquisite taste. He is going for an ice cream cake instead of a pie. Ice cream cake all the way.
Ooh, that's what I should have done. Um, I guess he can have the coconut pie a la mode, like with
Oh,
with
there you go.
ice cream on top of it. So in the shape of Telos 4. So
Perfect, perfect. All right. Well, now that we have the pies settled, I think it is time to put a pin here in our KOTOR 2 companion journeys. We're going to be back to talk about another pair of characters here very soon. So stick with us. Let us know what your favorite kind of pie is, or let us know if we nailed Visas Mars pie. Visas Mars and Bao-Dur's pie choices. Let us know all that stuff. And thanks for coming along with us on this one. Any closing thoughts, Cassia?
only one. May the pie be with you.